Well, welcome to a very special Friday the 13th edition of Real Nerds Podcast. I am Ryan, and I am joined by two legends, two of my favorite people in horror, director, writer Thom McLoughlin, actor, star Thom Matthews, of my favorite Friday the 13th, Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. I'm going to start with you, Mr. McLoughlin, because I think Part 5 is actually the low point in the series, in so much that it's really gratuitous and it's really dour. When you were offered the job for Part 6, did you make it a point to, one, make it, well, I know you try to make it more gothic, but I think visually yours is light years ahead of what came before it, and add fun back into the series, because I thought that was missing in Part 5.
Yeah, the humor aspect was a huge deal for me, because I've turned down so many slasher movies, and I thought I was going to be able to get April Fool's Day at Paramount, but they ended up going with somebody I can't remember, Walton. But they said, "Well, we give you a Friday the 13th." I said, "No, because I had only seen the first one, and then anytime I went and pitched my gothic horror movies, like One Dark Night that I did the first one, it was like, well, can you get us something in a forest or a desert, someplace isolated, and any kind of mask? I don't care. Something, that covers the guy's face, and then lots of girls, that get killed and stuff." And I said, no. It got to that in the 70s. Now we get a deal like that. So the Friday, I met with Frank Mancuso at Paramount, and I said, "So what do you want?" He said, "We got to bring back Jason. We fucked up. They think it's going to be Tommy Jarvis. They hated the fact it wasn't really Jason." So I said, "Okay, what else?" He said, "Whatever you want to do." So I really was so blessed to be able to, pick the cast I wanted to, pick the locations, do everything, and the only thing we didn't do was Jason's father, because they were afraid that the audience would see that towards the end and think, oh, the next one's going to be about Jason and his dad. And they didn't want that. At least that's what Frights thought. We never shot it, so I'll never know. But that was the only thing that was like, I didn't get to do. And it was like not a big deal. It went out on a bang, and our biggest problem was opening the weekend after Aliens. So the crowd, as a horror person myself, and if I had a choice between going to the new Friday the 13th or taking my butts to go see Aliens 2, dude, let's go. There'd be no question. So that did hurt us. But as we've gone 38 years now, it is amazing. And I thank this gentleman, I thank Jennifer Cook, all the comedy that the guys put in, all the actors. It was just made it more of a film than just a slasher film.
Yeah, and Thom, you came aboard, and your character has been played by two different people. And what I appreciated about your take on it was you could tell that you had some mental problems, and that from the PTSD you suffered from Jason, but you kind of played him in a fun way, and he was more likable than he was in the previous entry. Is that something you consciously did, or did the script lend itself to you being that way?
No, the script definitely lended itself to, I looked at, I got the part. I didn't turn it down. And, thank God. I went back and looked through. I had seen the first one, of course, and then went to 1 through 5 to see if I could pull anything, some kind of mannerism or anything from Tommy Jarvis that could pull into my character. Nothing really stood out. So I just basically went off the script, and what the tone was and the feelings were, and that was Thom had beautifully laid down. So.
And Thom, it seems like yours was really well planned too, because whether it's the American Express card, where it's Karloff's gas station, I think, did you know that by doing that it would lend itself to repeated viewings for people looking for that stuff?
I swear to God, the fans weren't going to like it, because I was making fun of the genre, doing somewhat of a satire, but never made fun of Jason. He still was a killer. The cast had a sense of humor, and which I took from the 30s, 40s movies, that wise ass thing. And these guys just had that, that rapid thing back and forth, where for me, that's smart people who can, kind of keep throwing the one-liners back and forth. But I thought it was going to open, and then the next week it was going to go a little, more down, and then come the third, fourth week it was going to be gone, because this was the age of beta and some of the other things which no one knew if that was going to happen. I figured it'd never be on television, so it's like siren up, gone with the wind. But much to our shock, it's like it has kept building as the years went on with the franchise and all that. I thought mine was going to be the last one, if it didn't do well. But thank God it started word of mouth and it kind of took off.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, Tom, when you get a script, because there's a moment at the very beginning where it is actually pretty creepy. You dig up Jason's body, and when he comes back alive and you're striking the match, and I just, as an actor, because your face there sells the whole thing. When you read that, is that spontaneous, or is it you're looking for that reaction?
When I read the script, or I see what hits me emotionally first of all, and then I kind of make a note of it, and then of course you build on that when you get on set, and then you take in the set, the maggots, Jason, the size of Jason, the whole environment, the darkness, all that stuff. So that all lends itself to me buying into what's going on.
And did you know it was going to work when you were on set with how everything was set up, and because you are in a sixth entry?
I don't really think in those terms. I don't even.
Yeah, he just commits.
Yeah,
He just commits to the moment. Yeah.
and because I think this one's endured so long because of what you said. You add the humor to it.
Well, also he put the romance into it.
Exactly.
Which is the fans emotionally you get hooked into and you root for the characters too. So that was, a beautiful thing that he's put in.
Because I would argue too that in this one you like everybody.
Yeah.
You don't want anything to happen to anybody.
You love Court.
Court, because when you first, yeah, or that hey babe, you taking a dump, and because she's getting killed by Jason, and you just laugh because of how he's able to emote, and it goes back to his really early in the movie. My favorite scene with him is when he's talking to the kids, and he's like, "You lay down these rocks, I don't know, for a squaw or whatever." I don't know how the rhythm. And what you talked about earlier, the rhythm that the actors have in this film, sell it.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if this is a conscious effort, obviously it is, but when Jason was on screen, it seemed like it was darker and it had a different menace to it. But you keep everybody else real, which the actors are able to pull off really quickly.
Well, I also gave the actors a lot of leeway. I mean, that scene with Court, Thom Ridley, that's all improv, and basically I said, yeah, just make up some stuff, because I knew his energy was so chaotic, he would come up with something, and that was it. One take, okay, move on, and he knows how to do that kind of stuff. And a lot of stuff with Thom and Jennifer too. They took the material and then they would take it a little bit further. And for me, as the writer, it's like, great, it makes the writing look even better. And they're coming from the character.
And
doing it on a piece of paper.
I agree 100% because, Tom, my favorite line that you have in the movie is, it reminds me of screwball comedies, where she says, "You're going to be sorry," and you say, "I hope not." And it's just the way it's delivered. It's kind of maybe not a throwaway line, but it's almost you've resigned yourself to that. I might not make it out of this, but as long as I take care of Jason, that's the point. And I think as an actor, that's an incredible gift to have. So is that something
that encapsulates the whole Tommy Jarvis, Jason? He's always going to be there, even though he's dead. He's always going to come back. There's always that lingering thing for Tommy for his whole life until he drops dead. That's a possibility.
Yeah, and it's cool too because even how he's brought back to life is your fault, and you realize that. And when you're talking to the sheriff and where the red dot goes, you bang, and then no one believes you until it's too late. And I love that setup that he's coming, and it reminds me of the shark from Jaws. He's coming, and no one's listening to Chief Brody, no matter what he says. And you took that role on beautifully, and I just adore this film. And now that it's 38 years later, is it how rewarding is it that you're here now in Denver and that's what people want to talk to you about still? Is that cool?
Bizarre beyond belief, surreal. I mean, I can't say I don't love the hell out of it because it's so great. I mean, this is Friday the 13th. More wonderful wishes from people than for my birthday or Christmas or anything else. It has just become such a thing. And it wasn't, in the very beginning, it's just the merchandising and all the stuff that's kind of made it into, the Zeist, the word for that.
Yeah.
And I mean, people come up and go, look at this. They've got like a scene from my movie on their arm or their back or whatever. And I thought, That's a commitment. But yeah, it is wonderfully rewarding, and the fact that we can still screen it and people still laugh where they're supposed to laugh. They still scream. They still go Happy Friday the 13th with the character, as they said.
They keep showing up for it.
Yeah, it's literally playing in Denver at the Alamo Drafthouse today. So that's really cool. And then for you, Thom, I was at Telluride last year where they debuted Never Hike Alone 2. And so for you as well, it's now 38 years later, you're continuing a story that was set up. And was that an easy, I'm right back into it, or?
Getting back in the role, it was the big, because when I was asked, it was, it's like, oh God, the fan film, I'm really hit rock bottom. I said, yeah, sure, send me the script. Oh, they already have half of it in the can, the first half of the movie, because they've been going out every weekend shooting it for 4 months. I said, oh, great. So then I saw it. It was like very topical. Jason's in it. How he finds him, it seems very organic and natural. The kid was great in it. Andrew Leahy was fantastic in it. And so then we found a spot for me to be in it, which made sense a little bit, to be at the end of the movie. And then we did Never Hike in the Snow. We were at Rake the Dig Back to be the sheriff because he survived.
Yeah.
Jason lived, so he's now the sheriff. And then we did Never Hike Alone 2.
That it's so cool. And did you have any input, because the opening scene in that is Tommy still struggling with what's happened in his life, and it's that surreal story.
Consistent in the character's life.
And is that something you asked them, or did they already have that planned for you?
He had it. He had already had it. The one thing he didn't have was he had the girl, the mother of the son who got killed and Never Hiked in the Snow. He had her killing Jason. And I said, there's no way. Fans have been waiting 38 years for Tommy Jarvis to take the final blow. Not to give anything away, but so we did acquiesce.
So you ditched the Elias story, which I always thought was really fascinating, because again, I'm a huge fan, and I get scripts that have been rejected and he seems to keep popping up.
Yeah.
And that's a like a behind the scenes thing that I don't know if a lot of fans know that you kind of pushed for. And are you aware that people keep on trying to bring his father into this?
Well, I was when I got a call from the guys in Seattle, who were doing what's that called? Jason Vengeance.
Vengeance
was the first one.
Jason Brooks.
And there was a couple of guys involved with all that in the beginning, and I thought it was very polite of them to call me and say, we want to kind of pick up, your vibe from that movie and stuff, and we'd love to do Jason's father. And I go, go with God, go with Jason. So I said, what kind of idea you think? He said, well, we're going to get, CJ to do it. And I went, that's so different than what I had in my mind, because I was looking at a really sort of gnarly looking guy, that basically in my mind, he married Mrs. Voorhees or made her Mrs. Voorhees, but Jason's real father was a little bit different that we'd find out later. And so they said, you want to play the caretaker, in the first scene, and I went, I'm there. So it was great fun to be kind of part of that, Vengeance 1 and 2, and
we did 2 together as well.
Yeah. That is so cool, because like I said, it's permeated my life, and it's one of the first horror films I remember watching, and when I was really young. And as you get older, you appreciate how you made it, and especially the rebound from Part 5, which again, it has its fans, but I just didn't think it was fun, and I think these movies should be fun. I really appreciate the time you guys had with us. This has been a dream come true that I get to talk to you guys. And so thank you so much.